Chapter 13 of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Translated by Lionel Giles. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 13. The Use of Spies. Sun Tzu said, "Raising a host of 100,000 men and marching them great distances entails heavy loss on the people and a drain on the resources of the state. The daily expenditure will amount to 1,000 ounces of silver. There will be commotion at home and abroad, and men will drop down exhausted on the highways. As many as 700,000 families will be impeded in their labor. Hostile armies may face each other for years, striving for victory which is decided in a single day. This being so, to remain in ignorance of the enemy's condition simply because one begrudges the outlay of 100 ounces of silver in honors and emoluments is the height of inhumanity. One who acts thus is no leader of men, no present help to his sovereign, no master of victory. Thus, what enables the wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. Now, this foreknowledge cannot be elicited from spirits. It cannot be obtained inductively from experience, nor by any deductive calculation. Knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained from other men. Hence the use of spies, of whom there are 5 classes. 1. Local spies. 2. Inward spies. 3. Converted spies. 4. Doomed spies. 5. Surviving spies. When these 5 kinds of spy are all at work, none can discover the secret system. This is called divine manipulation of threads.
These are all proven, admitted to, or revealed in declassified documents. With that in mind, there are almost certainly more that will never be fully verified, so this is in no way a comprehensive list. These are a few of the real interesting ones that I've come across while reading these documents. One of the biggest ones was the assassination attempts on Fidel Castro, the leader of Cuba. Cuba in the 1950s was friendly with the US, to put it mildly. US corporations and businessmen made a lot of money there, including the mafia with the casinos. When Castro seized power, all that changed. Castro nationalized, including those casinos. Obviously, this hurt the US government, businesses, and the mafia. Now, there are wildly different claims about how many times the CIA tried to assassinate Castro, from a US Senate investigation saying 8, to the Cuban government which claims over 600. A lot of it comes down to semantics, how you defined an attempt. Most were simply ideas thrown around, without ever any concrete steps taken to actually carry it out. Also, testimonies and documents show that the CIA did not always distinguish between assassinating Castro and their overall goal to overthrow the government of Cuba in general. For example, the famous Bay of Pigs invasion. At first, after Castro took power, the CIA's efforts aimed to discredit him, as he hadn't yet fully cemented his power. That then changed to discussing ideas of assassinating him, but there seemed to be a lot of debate on whether that would actually accomplish their goal of toppling the whole government, as others loyal to Castro would simply take his place, like his brother Raul, who is actually the current leader of Cuba. This resulted in a larger plan, the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. When that failed, the CIA seemed to be back to square one, plotting assassination attempts on Castro, but also again planning another large-scale operation to overthrow the government, Operation Mongoose. The Cuban Missile Crisis a few months later changed that again, and it ended with the US promising not to invade Cuba. President Kennedy's big push to overthrow the Cuban government mostly ended, but that didn't stop all the assassination plots. In fact, the very day Kennedy was assassinated, a CIA officer met with a Cuban asset and gave him a ballpoint pen with poison in it. It then turned out that the asset was actually a plant, working for Castro.
One of them who was pained and is pained is Senator Eugene McCarthy of Minnesota.
Now, if we believe that the Constitution says about the responsibility of Congress to declare war, for example, to have the CIA at the direction of a president actually fomenting or carrying on a war in a country, if it were to do this without any kind of congressional approval, I think would put some real strain on the Constitution. It's interesting to note that people from small countries, or Latin American countries, for example, are always greatly concerned about our CIA, because a secret agency of this kind in a relatively small country with a weak government can become the real force of government.
And it did happen here. Guatemala City, the capital of a country where the rich are very rich, the poor very poor, and the politics all mixed up. The pendulum swung very far left with the election in 1950 of Colonel Jacobo Arbenz as president. He confiscated the lands of the wealthy and filled his government with communists. He became, in local and American eyes, a menace. So the American government, through the CIA, made an alliance with Arbenz's opposition, and as of that moment, he was doomed. An American who had been air attaché at our embassy there, named Fred Sherwood, tells how the plot began.
Several of us thought that perhaps we could stop this movement by organizing something in the form of vigilantes or night riders. For example, there was a group that tried to bring in some Puerto Rican and Cuban gangsters who made an offer, a package deal to speak, to kill or assassinate any 12 communists within the country for $50,000. We went around trying to raise money, but we were only successful in raising a part of this, and so this never came off. But this demonstrates the desperate situation that the country was in at that time. These men provided the know-how of organizing a successful revolution. We had, fortunately, two wonderful ambassadors in Guatemala that if any of the planes flying for the Liberation Army had been shot down, some of those pilots could have spoken Chinese.
The most important pilot for the Liberation Army, however, spoke American. The Liberation Army was CIA-sponsored and directed, but it didn't have an easy time in its overthrow of the Arbenz regime. The Army had bogged down when an American freebooter named Jerry Delarme strafed the city and blew up the government oil reserves. Delarme did that while flying a P-47 furnished by the United States. Now he flies his own Lodestar, owns his own charter service, and minds his own business.
I've been flying in Latin America ever since 1939, off and on. I like it here. It's easy living, siestas, and not too much rushing, no rut. It's a nice place. The first problem I had with communism down here started back in the time of Colonel Castillo Armas in Guatemala. That's when I started, was contacted, and from then on, that's about it.
2 days after Delarme blew up the oil reserves, Arbenz resigned. However, his replacements hesitated to embrace Delarme's employers, so Delarme got back in his plane and blew up the main Army powder magazine, which rather decided the question. The replacement for Colonel Arbenz was Carlos Castillo Armas, the entry backed by the USA. He arrived in the American ambassador's plane. Within about a month, there was little trace of the Marxist innovations of Colonel Arbenz. Mr. Bissell, Guatemala and what the United States and the CIA did there came within your tenure at the CIA. Do you regard Guatemala as a success?
I do.
Can you tell me a little more about it? Why you regard it as a success?
Well, I'll give you first an answer that may be slightly bureaucratic in its tone, but that, in the case of that operation, notably, as of other large operations, the whole policy-making machinery of the executive branch of the government was involved. By reason of its nature, the CIA had an assigned role, which was really a major role in that operation. And I say it's a success because the assigned role was carried out in which an action was taken that went beyond the established take-on operations of this, covert operations, or overt for that matter, of this scope, draw narrow boundaries of policy around them, and be absolutely sure that those boundaries will never be overstepped. The overstepping in the case of the Guatemala operation, the one case I'm aware of, mercifully turned out to be of an organization commissioned to do a job, just an unqualified success.
It's not a secret that the U.S. intelligence organization, the CIA, has overthrown many foreign governments. Here are 5 of the in not-so-subtle ways it's done it. The first one is the CIA will usually try funding the opposition. This is the safest and easiest method for the CIA. It can be as simple as giving money to opposition groups, or as complicated as supporting Jerry Coon. And it happened in South Vietnam in 1963. Similar instances happened in Brazil and Guatemala. Declassified documents show how the CIA supported the coup plotters, namely Vietnamese generals, to oust the country's leader, Ngo Dinh Diem. Number 2, assassination. Killing others to install a U.S.-approved party is another option. The CIA continuously tried to assassinate the democratically elected leader of the colony, Patrice Lumumba. They succeeded in 1961, but public support for Lumumba was so high that they couldn't put his opponent in power. What followed was 4 years of political chaos. 3. Destroying the economy, or economic assassination. By using overt and covert means to destroy the target country's financial system, like embargoes, the U.S. can force a political party to crumble. This strategy was used against Chile in the 1970s. After Salvador Allende's unwieldy policy of nationalizing the country's major industries continued, much to the disapproval of the U.S. government, President Richard Nixon told the CIA to, quote, make enemies scream. The agency also worked with 3 Chilean groups which planned a coup against Allende. The U.S. constantly worked to undermine the Chilean economy, until General Augusto Pinochet replaced Allende in a military coup in 1973. Number 4, media takeover. The CIA will buy and use newspapers, TV, and radio stations to change public opinion and push anti-government rhetoric. This is what it did in Italy in the mid-20th century. The CIA bought and owned 40% of the Rome Daily American, initially to keep it from falling into communist control. But a former CIA official later said, quote, it's here to buy a reporter, which went then to buy a newspaper. And the agency has kept many American and foreign journalists on its payroll. Number 5, creating chaos. Causing panic among the people, creating social tensions through street protests is another way the agency has overthrown governments. And making sure the protesters don't know the real motives are also key. The fact that Iran's democratically elected leader Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized an Iranian oil industry previously operated by British companies was not very welcome by the US and the UK. The 2 countries instigated a coup to overthrow him in 1953, one of through the efforts of the CIA. To throw Mossadegh out, millions of dollars were channeled into Tehran to buy off his supporters and finance street protests. The result? Mossadegh ended up living the rest of his life under house arrest. This is what we do know about the secret organization. But who knows what we don't know?
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
This is the story of a 30-year search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control. Some of those engaged in that search have agreed to talk about it for the first time. One said, "I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt this kind of thing. We knew we were crossing the line." The search would be endless. From brothels, an agent says, we learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom, to the mystical rites of a magical mushroom ceremony performed by an Indian shaman, to a Spanish bull ring. The bull has had electrodes implanted in the brain and is controlled by a scientist. There would be victims. One intelligence agency tried to peel this man's mind back to reveal its deepest secrets.
I'll live through it. I'll live through it.
This man worked on some of these programs. He would write of his work, "It was fun, fun, fun." This is the story of the search for mind control.
ABC News Close-Up, Mission Mind Control. With ABC News correspondent Paul Altmaier.
We are not professing to tell the complete story's activities. We are professing to tell you the complete story that we know. But these records that we've uncovered don't tell the story. They tell pieces of it.
This is a story that has been told in bits and pieces. This is an attempt to pull most of it together. We know we don't have the full story. We do, however, have some striking new revelations and insights. The story begins here, just off the nation's front yard, the Mall. The buildings behind me were the headquarters for the World War II Office of Strategic Services. Here that the first halting steps toward mind control began. The shaper and molder of OSS was General Wild Bill Donovan. He said of his group's work, "We may have made mistakes, but we were not afraid to try things that were never done before." In this anything-goes atmosphere, Donovan appointed this man, Stanley Lovell, a Boston industrialist, to break new ground in many scientific and technical fields. Donovan called Lovell his Dr. Moriarty, after the fiendish professor in Sherlock Holmes. Lovell liked the name and posed for this Saturday Evening Post photo. He later wrote of his OSS job that it was, quote, "to stimulate the PEC's bad boy beneath the surface of every American scientist and to say to him, throw all of your normal law-abiding concepts out of the window. Here's a chance to raise merry hell." It was in this atmosphere that the search for mind control began. This bizarre man would be an active participant in that search over the next 2 decades. His name is George White, an OSS captain who had formerly been with the Bureau of Narcotics. In his diary, seen here publicly for the first time, White left a legacy of the darker side of American intelligence work. He received his early OSS training at the British-run school at Oshawa, Canada, the same school where Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond, was trained. White referred to the school in his diaries as the Oshawa School of Mayhem and Murder. Mike Burke, former OSS colleague of White's and now president of Madison Square Garden Center.
Very compelling fellow, mysterious fellow, almost mystical fellow. He was fascinating because you knew something about him, but not enough about him to really get a fix on him. He also knew a great deal about the swifter elements of society, the gamier side of life, and he was very impressive in his technical knowledge of the underworld, so to speak.
He said one of our men gets beat up. He says you have to act real fast and teach these guys a lesson.
Charles Siragusa, a former narcotics officer and friend of White's.
He'll come around, he says, and break your kneecaps. And with that, one guy laughed, and George would always have little Billy with him. And this one guy saw us naked. George White turned around and whapped him across the neck with it. Then he picked up a pool stick and started beating everybody up.
He made his point.
And he made his point.
George White was not a man of understatement or subtleties. His boss at OSS, Stanley Lovell, referred to him as deadly and dedicated. In this note from White's diaries, it says, "Call Lovell regarding TD." TD was a rather transparent cover for Truth Drug. George White worked with the Truth Drug Committee here at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in the nation's capital.
They experimented with mescaline, scopolamine, and marijuana on unwitting victims. The committee soon learned there was no easy panacea, no truth drug at this stage. But White and later colleagues would not stop trying. The goal remained the same. As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation. But it was a discovery here in Basel, Switzerland, at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Albert Hoffman that led the intelligence agencies of America to believe that they had found the panacea. The discovery was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. The film that you see is considered by many experts to be the closest illustration of the effects of a hallucinogenic.
It was one of the first times that anybody had run into a powerful drug that was different than anything else that they knew anything about.
John Gittinger, recently retired chief psychologist for the CIA. This is the first time Gittinger has been interviewed publicly.
We could disable a whole city by putting a very small amount on a water supply. After all of these years of us, those of us who are involved in looking for this secret drug, this was the only thing that began to look for the first time like it might be something like that.
The CIA's interest in LSD was intense. The worry was that the Russians would get hold of it. Were the Soviets into LSD?
I'm going to have to say I'm sure they were, but if you ask me to prove it, I've never seen any direct proof of it.
But at one point, intelligence information received from Switzerland said that Sandoz Laboratories was about to put 100 million doses of LSD on the open market. And it caused enough concern within the agency that the United States was prepared to buy the entire supply. However, a slight mistake had been made. The mistake is made public for the first time.
I just found out on a new CIA document that there were no such large quantities of LSD on the market.
John Marks has filed numerous Freedom of Information suits against the CIA and has unearthed much new material. He is the author of The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, a history of intelligence agency work with mind control. He is a consultant for this report.
What happened is that there was a military attaché in Switzerland, an American officer, who got milligrams and kilograms mixed up. In other words, he made a mistake of thinking 1/1000th of a gram was the same as 1,000 grams, which is a mistake of 1,000,000 times. So when the CIA got the intelligence that there were 100 million doses on the market, in fact, there were 100 doses.
The man who would oversee the CIA's research into drugs and most of the agency's behavior programs is this man, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist. Dr. Gottlieb declined ABC News' request for an interview. In their never-ending search for the miracle weapon, CIA operatives searched here in the remote mountain areas of southern Mexico for what up to then had been considered a myth, magic mushrooms. They used this man, a part-time chemist with the CIA, to dupe this man, a vice president of a bank and an amateur mycologist or mushroom expert, to try to get to the magic mushrooms and turn them into a drug. But it would be the amateur, R. Gordon Wasson and his colleagues, who would win the race and develop the drug psilocybin from the magic mushrooms.
We went into the Mazatec area, far from the highways, remote from Mexico City. There we found that rotten bagasse, as it's called, bagasso, covered with mushrooms. These mushrooms I didn't know, had never seen. They were the sacred mushrooms.
Wasson would also discover and record the ancient mystical rites of the mushrooms from a local shaman or magical priestess, Maria Sabina.
And we were seeing incredible sights. They would go slowly or they would go fast as I ordained. All your senses are rendered acute. We say that you see visions, you see hallucinations. But that doesn't begin to tell this story. The hallucinations are only part of it. You hear sounds, you smell things. The night was thrilling.
Word of Watson's discovery reached the CIA quickly. Dr. James Moore, a University of Delaware chemist, secretly served the CIA preparing deadly chemicals on short notice. Moore was instructed to get close to Watson and accompany him on another trip to Mexico to get the magic mushrooms. Internal documents show the CIA felt a drug derived from the mushrooms could remain an agency secret. What in the world were they looking for with the magic mushrooms?
I think the best answer to that is that they were looking for fundamental information on compounds that would be capable of causing changes in behavior, changes in mental attitude.
Did you ever consider what would have happened if any of these substances were given to, say, unwitting people?
Oh, I don't remember having considered that specifically.
What if you... I trust perhaps you've thought about it.
Well, I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
any of these substances would
have been given to
unwitting persons?
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No, I mean,
that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
I mean, testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
But many drugs were tested in this way. A decision was made at the highest levels of the CIA to do testing on unwitting Americans. As one CIA document says, such testing would be operationally realistic. A former CIA official who worked on these programs describes for the first time how the decision was made. He did not wish to be filmed or recorded. Thus his remarks are read by someone else.
I think every last one of us felt sorry to attempt thing. We knew we were crossing the line. Every decent kid knows he shouldn't steal, but he does it sometimes. We knew damn well we didn't want anyone else to know what we were doing.
The decision was made to do testing on unwitting victims. It was decided they should be on the fringes of society because they were most vulnerable.
It was the borderline underworld, prostitutes, drug addicts, and other small-timers who would be powerless to seek any kind of revenge in case they found out.
And as their predecessors had a decade earlier, the CIA turned to George White for help. White was now a high-ranking narcotics official, and by this time the stories about George White were legendary.
The waiter says, "You may help you, monsieur?" And George White was busy talking with me. He paid no attention to the waiter, so the waiter tapped him on the shoulder, says, "May I help you, monsieur?" George White turned around, whipped his gun out, and stuck it in the guy's face like this in this crowded restaurant.
George White did not mind bending the law, and he knew the street well. He was the ideal choice for what the CIA had in mind.
We were Ivy League, white, middle class. We were naive, totally naive about this, and he felt pretty expert. He knew the whores, the pimps, the people who brought in the drugs.
White set up so-called safe houses for the CIA in New York, here in Greenwich Village, and later in San Francisco, in this hotel, and in an apartment atop Telegraph Hill with a commanding view of San Francisco Bay. While the existence of these safe houses was disclosed last year, details of what took place within them has not been told. A former CIA official who worked in the safe houses reveals that they were used not only for drug testing, but to study sexual behavior and how it could be used to manipulate people.
We did quite a study of prostitutes and their behavior. How do you take a woman who is willing to use her body to get money out of a guy to get him to talk about things which are much more important, like state secrets? We learned a lot about human nature in the bedroom. We started to pick up knowledge that could be used in operations.
There would be victims in all of this, but as the agency knew, they couldn't fight back. Some entries from George White's diaries. Clarice gets horrors. Janet, sky high. As one agency memo says, we have no answer to the moral question. The safe houses were not the only testing grounds. Millions of dollars would be spent on LSD research at universities throughout the country. And word would begin to spread on campus about this so-called mind-blowing drug. And suddenly, there was the counterculture of the 60s.
I give the CIA a total credit for sponsoring and initiating the entire consciousness movement, counterculture events of the 1960s.
Dr. Timothy Leary, the 1960s Johnny Appleseed of LSD.
The CIA funded and supported and encouraged hundreds of young psychiatrists to experiment with this drug. The fallout from that was that the young psychologists began taking it themselves, discovering that it was an intelligence-enhancing, consciousness-raising experience.
I know that some of the studies in which the CIA had supported used as subjects people who later became strong proselytizers of LSD. So, in that sense, yes, I think it did sustain the perpetuation of the use of the drug. And it's rather ironic, isn't it?
The counter case that I would make in relationship to that is to remember that the people who were doing the research were people who would be doing the research regardless of who was the sponsor. I don't think anybody working in that time in the remotest ever thought that it would blow up into the kind of thing that it did.
History will judge the role of the CIA and other intelligence agencies in unwittingly contributing to the counterculture of the 60s through their intense interest in LSD and other hallucinogenics. But for the moment at least, the argument can be made that the CIA helped usher in the age of Aquarius. Covering a span of history such as we are in this report, one can get sidetracked by the so-called glamour and mystery of espionage work or by the exotic qualities of some drugs. But what you can't lose sight of is what all of this would mean in terms of individual human beings. There would be deaths, there would be long-lasting and harmful effects. The best-known case is that of this man, Frank Olson, a chemist employed by the Army Chemical Corps, who in 1953 was slipped LSD unknowingly at a meeting with CIA officials. Shortly after that, Olson went into severe depression. He ended his life at this New York hotel by diving through a shaded closed window in his 10th floor room. Frank Olson was the first known fatality in the CIA's LSD program. Olson left behind a widow, Alice, and 3 children, but it would be years before they learned the real story of his death. Shortly after his suicide, Alice Olson was visited by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, the man who administered the drug, and by Robert Lesch, his deputy, who was the last person with Frank Olson the night of his death.
It was probably to check me out and see whether I was handling myself and handling the situation, whether I was hysterical. And I'm sure they left the house feeling ever so much better because I had been gracious and hospitable to them, so that I must have played right into their hand and made them feel fine.
23 years later, how did you feel about that meeting?
My anger was unbelievable at how I had been duped for this length of time, and the anguish which was unnecessary.
Anyone who knew during all of those years never told Alice Olson the real her husband's death.
Putin authorized operations during the election to denigrate you, support President Trump, undermine our elections, divide our society. What price must he pay?
He will pay a price. We had a long talk, he and I. I know him relatively well. And the conversation started off, I said, I know you and you know me. If I establish this occurred, then be prepared.
You said you know he doesn't have a soul.
I did say that to him, yes. And his response was, we understand one another. I wasn't being a wise guy. I was alone with him in his office. That's how it came about. It was when President Bush said, I've looked in his eyes and saw a soul. I said, looked in your eyes, and I don't think you have a soul. And looked back at me and said, we understand each other. Look, most important thing dealing with foreign leaders, in my experience, and I've dealt with an awful lot of them over my career, is just know the other guy.
So you know Vladimir Putin think he's a killer?
Mm-hmm. I do.
It's President Biden in a new ABC interview talking about the intelligence assessment on foreign interference into the 2020 election that was declassified yesterday. Leading up to the election, senior Trump administration officials claimed China was looking to hurt President Trump's re-election chances. But the newly released assessment says China stayed out of the election, but Russia and Iran did not. According to the report, Russian President Vladimir Putin authorized, quote, influence operations aimed at denigrating President Biden's candidacy and the Democratic Party.
The director of national intelligence in this report also singled out as a success in the Russian operation last year targeting our election, singled out as a success the placing of an anti-Joe Biden documentary on U.S. television. It was this supposed documentary. It aired on one of the rabidly pro-Trump and perhaps also incidentally pro-Putin news networks. The director of national intelligence put out its report on what foreign adversaries did try to influence the election and how they did it. And this one got a lot more attention because this was about a real attack on our country that was pitched at an alarming target, and that hits a lot of buttons in our politics. Key judgment.
Hey guys, this is Tommy Nation Politics. How's it going? So, undermine our democracy, interfere with our elections. Those are the talking points this week. Russia, he has no soul. Kind of reminds me of when they were saying that Saddam Hussein, it would be better off if he was not, we need regime change. Regime change is the most important thing. Regime change is the most important thing. Not the liberty or spreading our democracy, but the fact that he is undermining democracy. He's interfering with our freedom. It's the same old song, same old dance, coming from the same old people. The people who want to give long-lasting effects and maybe death just for the experiment of what can make you tick. This is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics, guys. How's it going? Lights all in my face. Oh, that's better. All right, so welcome to Tommy Nation Politics, guys. Hello, my friends. Welcome to your headquarters for free thinking, innovative, open-minded, progressive media. Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Good? I hope so. Thanks for joining me tonight. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. Also, if you wish to contribute to Tommy Nation Politics, please send whatever you desire to PayPal, Tommy Nation Politics, TNP, capital, one word. You can always follow us on Twitter, Tommy Nation Poll, TONPOL. Facebook.com/Tommy Nation Politics or the main site, TommyNationPolitics.com. Tonight, Tommy Nation Tuesday, bad intelligence. An open secret for decades. It has actually been an open secret for decades, but for the first time now, the CIA has released documents that show its role in the 1953 coup. That is the coup that toppled Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mossadegh. Yes, he had moved to nationalize the oil production while the U.S. was concerned at the time. So that would mean a victory for the Soviets in the Cold War shortly after the election, the CIA began to plan his overthrow, just like they did the Bay of Pigs. It was a very interesting controlled opposition. That's how they did it. Y'all notice how they were talking about those different ways the CIA meddles in your with your mind, making you think that you're actually doing something when in reality they're the ones controlling the whole situation. Just like, let me tell you guys an example. This is why I was really so kind of worried about Black Lives Matter, because like it's different in the you know, the 60s when we're all, oh, that's Martin Luther King, he lived down the street. Oh, that's John Lewis. You know, everybody knows everybody. We know who's gonna be at the march, right? With this Black Lives Matter, we don't know who's in Black Lives Matter. We don't know who runs Black Lives Matter. We don't know if there's a membership. It's kind of like Antifa. So that's a little tricky kind of thing, guys, because there's a problem with that, with the knowing. Check you out. What's up? How's it going? Welcome to the show. Sorry, I was too busy talking, but that's my friend. Check you out. Welcome to the CIA show, guys. We need to talk about this, guys. I don't care what kind of ideology you are, whether you're Republican, Democrat, independent, nonpartisan. If you're nonpartisan, I'm nonpartisan. My dream is having these two parties destroyed, because what they've done is polluted, taxed, and outsourced our entire country, extracted the wealth from the 1% that own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. They use our own principles and values to divide us. And while we're divided, they have little homeland securities for national security purposes. However, as you can see, guys, they literally experimented on us. There's more times. I cut that documentary because y'all can watch the documentary on YouTube. But besides giving people drugs, they made numerous people commit suicide. They put LSD in the water. That's true. And so one must be very wary about these guys. Now, when I was first becoming politically aware in 2000, I was like 13. So I saw my teacher. She rolled the TV in like they used to do, and we saw the World Trade Center fall. So I saw it. Everybody, I was like, "Who is that?" At first, we all thought it was an accident. Like, some stupid guy just flew his plane in there. Then the other plane happened. Then I was like, what's going on? Then all this talking started happening. They're like, oh, it was Al-Qaeda. Oh, it's Al-Qaeda? Okay, I'm a kid. That's Al-Qaeda. Then I see President George W. Bush, who just walked out of Operation Desert Storm earlier that decade, start to talk about weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction, over and over again. Go to Fox, weapons of mass destruction. CNN, weapons of mass destruction. MSNBC, weapons of mass destruction. Oh, there's weapons of mass destruction. Pretty soon you hear it everywhere. It's true, right? That's how the human mind works. That's how you study, right? You keep saying the same thing over and over and again until it gets into your brain. Then you're ready for the test. So we were being tested, or at least I was. I was being tested, and this time I'm not going to fail. Because as a kid, I was like, so if the Al-Qaeda guys attacked us, why are we going to Iraq? I didn't know where Iraq was. I didn't know where Al-Qaeda was. I just knew that these two things aren't like the other. And why? But at that time, weapons of mass destruction on every channel. And if you chose to question our president after an attack, well, you hate America and you hate the troops. You see that, guys? That was the beginning of the end, I think. Because we were so scared, it made them realize something. That even though we have a constitution, that we are willing, because of our first world issues, well, we're actually second world now because of what's happening. Because of our issues and our convenience and our lazy thinking and our group bandwagon mentality, they've literally seen us just hitch on to the stupidest president of all time. Stupidest. You think Trump is dumb? No. Y'all did not see George W. Bush. He couldn't even walk through a fucking door. We all hitched along to him because we were afraid. And everyone was telling us we hated the troops if we didn't. And we all held hands and we invaded Iraq together. We all did it. Guess who was there? Joseph Elizabeth Biden, leading the charge. He's back again. He's back again, and the CIA loves it. The Democrats love it. They're really good at signing all the things the CIA wants them to. When it comes to oil, when it comes to overthrowing other countries' governments and installing puppet leaders, that's what they want to do. Their whole mentality is get rid of the threat before the threat even emerges. Guess what that means? We could be the threat. We could be the threat. If this insurrection didn't teach you anything, if y'all are so busy just mourning over the fact that some of our people walked in the middle of the den of thieves, of people that were robbing us transparently, this is March. If you could just get over the fact that they did that for a second. And yes, for the wrong reasons. I'm a progressive. I don't agree with their argument. But that our people's house has been defiled long ago. They use our own principles and values to divide us. And if we don't succumb to their propaganda, that's when the intelligence comes. That's when we're war tired, guys. As you can see, the Iraq war is still going on. Afghanistan. Barack Obama expanded the wars from 2 to 7. Libya, Somalia, Pakistan. We're war tired. We just got out of COVID. So what's the thing that they could do? What is the one thing that they could probably say to us that could probably make us forget about our tired war behavior? Forget about the fact that we're in 8 countries drone striking them every day. Somebody's interfering with your elections. Your constitutional free elections. Oh, it wasn't China. It was our old friend from the Cold War. You know, Putin, the guy who we fight with in Syria every day for the oil reserves. So I know a lot of y'all aren't paying attention. Good for you, because you know, you should be focusing on providing for your families and working hard and doing whatever you need to do. But let me tell you guys, since day one of Joe Biden's inauguration, he's been bombing that Syria with the Saudis. He wrote in, and I've been following it because I'm Tommy Nation Politics. He wrote in from the Iraqi border. What the military did with the Saudis. And we've been there ever since, taking their oil fields. Now, Putin doesn't like it because, see, they have an alliance. Putin and Syria, Russia and Syria, they have an alliance just like us and Britain. Well, Putin was like, I'm tired of you guys fucking over my little friend. Don't go in here again. That's when this whole thing started, guys. That's when the undermining the elections and interfering with the democracy started. Undermining elections, interfering with democracy. Yeah. Erdogan, the Turkish president, he was trying to build a pipeline through. That's when we really started gearing up to Russia. That was when the Russiagate thing started. When Erdogan and Assad and Putin got involved together. That's when we went nuts. And Rachel Maddow was every day, oh my God, Trump, Russia. Now, I'm not a Trumpist. I'm a free-thinking, open-minded, innovative person with no trip derangement syndrome. He's a crass guy, a lot dumb, very entertaining, but he didn't do everything evil. In fact, some things he did from his pure stubbornness, I loved, like the fact that he moved troops out of Syria, and then everybody was like, "What was everybody like? Oh, the Kurds! The Kurds! You're gonna kill the Kurds! You can't leave Syria for the Kurds. You can't leave Syria for the Kurds, right? No, it's not the oil. It's the Kurds. You can't leave Syria for the Kurds. Remember? Also, you hate the troops. The same games, guys. The same games. Sometimes they'll insert some little fucking tribe you've never heard of, but it's the same story. We need to wake up to it. We need to wake up to the manufacturing consent of the mainstream media. This interfering with elections and undermining democracy is something the Republicans have done since they got into power. So you know, if you want to look in somebody's eyes and say they don't have a soul, why don't you look into the guy that literally did a crime bill that incarcerated half the country? Why don't you look into that guy's eyes? It's so funny how, like, I'm a progressive, but I swear to God, my people will fucking boycott Dr. Seuss before they go after the guy who literally caused the Iraq War. Or criminalized marijuana, kept it with that stigma. And literally yesterday he fired 5 of his own staffers for smoking marijuana in the past. So it's hilarious, guys. The bias, the cognitive dissonance, it's interesting. There they go. So this is going to be this. We're in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Kuwait, Yemen. We're not backing down. In fact, they declassified some documents. Turns out we have no idea why we're in Afghanistan. We don't have a plan. Well, that really was like Tulsi Gabbard, who was a medic. She had to pick up her dead friends off the battlefield. That's why she ran for president. That's why. It's not because she was transphobic or the Russia's assets. It's because she literally saw her friends dying in a war that the CIA started and the Democrats and Republicans cashed in on. And she's like, no. Guess what? She got destroyed. She got destroyed because undermining democracy, social norms, conventional wisdom. We can't keep falling for this bullshit, guys. We cannot keep falling for this. Now the CIA, we've seen it spelling it out. Their involvement in a series of newly declassified documents. These are actual documents, confident, top secret. And it's the stuff of mysteries and thrillers, bro. Who served in the operations that codenamed TPE, Ajax? And this one dated July 22nd, 1953. Of course, we know about the coup in Iran, which is why Iran hates us so much. We literally deposed their fucking elected leader. Now they have an Ayatollah. George W. Bush lied with Iraq about the weapons of mass destruction. We all know it. Never mind that the current Republican president, or the former one, was saying they lied. Who cares about the Trump derangement syndrome? Let's focus on the facts. In more than 20 tweets, the entire that guy Brennan on MSNBC laid out the fact that they deposed it. They're like so cocky right now because they're literally controlling us. And now this latest thing, guys. I just can't take it anymore. I stopped watching the mainstream media a long time ago. But I refuse to lay down and live in a country where our people, 8 million people slipped into poverty during this COVID crisis. People lost their jobs, their livelihoods, my friends, my family, my countrymen. When are we going to stop listening to these liars? When are we going to stop electing these liars? Look, I'm going to go one step at a time. And I'm just going to ask that we pay attention to the mind control. The mind control. And since 1953, it's got even easier to mind control us. Because there's 6 cable news companies. 3 people own them. 3. It is easy. Bill Clinton made it easy with his Telecommunications Act. Barack Obama made it easy by extending and expanding and making the Bush tax cuts permanent, along with the Patriot Act, who, for some reason, guys, is still in effect. The Patriot Act is still in effect, guys. Do you know what that means? That means that we have no rights at all. If someone calls us a terrorist, we don't have any. It's made me really, really hesitant and cautious. I mean, not to mention I'm also black and police. They don't like us sometimes. Why are you resisting? Nah, I'm good. Thanks. I'll keep my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, guys. I'll keep my Third Amendment, my Fourth. Y'all keep your Second. It's so funny how conservatives think that they're coming after your guns when they literally have satellites that can shoot from you from the sky. You can keep your fucking rifles, guys. If they want to kill you, they literally will kill you. Like now, if they like. So let's go to check you out. Let's go to the chat. Anybody want to ask me any questions? Anybody want to discuss this? If you're right-leaning, discuss it with me. If you're left-leaning, discuss it with me. We need to have a dialogue. We need to have an open-minded conversation. We need to get to know our people and stop being polarized, guys. This is not healthy for us. You know, Joe Biden, he's always like, well, we're the United States of America. There's nothing we can't do. We can do anything if we're united. He's right. He just wants us to be united and walk hand in hand with him to Russia. Fucking drone strike them. He means it for evil, like the Republicans and Democrats do. It's not just Joe Biden. It was George W. Bush, too. It was Hillary Clinton. It was Lindsey Graham. It's Mitch McConnell. It's everyone who wants to maintain power, has oil donors that campaign finance them, and have interests. It's simple capitalism. It's economic theory, guys. It's not conspiracy. It's economic theory. I mean, if you think that this is conspiracy, then I guess supply and demand is conspiracy too. But anyway, what are you talking about? Check you out. Octagon. The Pentagon you talk about? So you bring up a really good point there, because you'll notice that during the war startup, when Joe Biden was all in the Senate talking about how, you got weapons of mass destruction. Oh, if he doesn't, well, Saddam Hussein is a brutal dictator. A brutal dictator. And the world would be better off without him. So anyway, some of the Democrats in the Congress during that time, because of course it was two parties, they didn't want the president to have an entire monopoly on the most powerful army the world has ever seen. So they wanted him to have a certain amount of time. That he had to come back for another resolution. Joe Biden made sure that didn't happen. He fought against a resolution. He fought against a resolution for Congress to appropriate whether or not we should be engaged in more war. He single-handedly gave the reins to George W. Bush, and we have been in Iraq since 2001, 2002. 2002. How many years is that, guys? I'm not a math surgeon. It's a lot of years, guys. It's almost 20. One more year, we get a gold watch. So, Switzerland is an octagon? What are you talking about, bro? Switzerland is an octagon? I don't know nothing about no Switzerland, bro. What are we doing there? Switzerland? Talk about Deutsche Bank? Epstein? It all is related, guys, and it all comes full circle. But I'm not going to get to Epstein. I want y'all to, not think I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm not Alex Jones of the progressive wing. I'm just literally, I'm not a super genius either. It's just the same game over and over and over again. And I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of losing. You ever played Monopoly where you never win? And then you always end up crying with no money while dad takes your fucking properties and your your cars and your little coins and stuff. That's literally how the American people are. You should feel like that. We are. Every single year since the very foundation, since Hoover's founded the FBI, and then who started the fucking CIA? They think they need all of these little branches of Secret Service. The first thing George W. Bush did, I remember this. The first thing he did before he went to war, he started Homeland Security. It's the first thing George Bush did. The first thing he did before he even went to war, he established another branch of Homeland Security. There was no Homeland Security till then. He had to cover his ass. And then anyone who was questioning it, anyone who was asking questions, who was a traitor? Well, if you're a traitor with the Patriot Act in effect, you go to Guantanamo with no questions asked. You get no due process, no habeas corpus. You get Guantanamo. That's what was happening. So, I don't know. What does liberal mean anymore? If we're allowing this to happen before our very eyes. What do you identify as politically? Politically, I identify as someone who, I identify as a progressive. I call myself a progressive. I call myself the new independent progressive media. That's a good question, sir. Oh man, I have my glasses on. That's a good question. But however, I see with my eyes. I use my conscience. I use my heart. I use my gut, and I use my principles and values. Bernie Sanders endorsed the guy who tried to cut Social Security twice, the guy who put a crime bill in effect to incarcerate half my race, and the guy who, full-throatedly, tried to get us into war of a country that didn't attack us. So I respect and I voted for Bernie Sanders so hard, but I had to break ranks with him. Solely for my principles and values. So I identify as a progressive because I believe in the progressive platform, but I do not agree with falling in line. I do not agree with bandwagon mentality. I do not agree with these political parties. They shouldn't exist, and they're hurting us. They're killing us. Killing us softly, slowly, secretly, covertly. They're killing us, guys. And I don't think we know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I know those guys that were in the insurrection, they don't know what to do either. That's why they just went in there and started flying flags around, sat in Mike Pence's chair. If you're going to do something like that, guys, you got to finish the job. That's all I have to say. I love you, man. What man? Blonde pep? Blonde. Yes, I love Bernie Sanders too. It's just that he'll never, ever accomplish anything because he keeps on playing politics. So it's really ironic that I call myself Tommy Nation Politics because I hate politics. Politics is a lie that rich people tell you to get you to work harder so that you can make their wealth, so they can funnel it to the 1%. Like the American dream. Politics is a lie they tell you to make you think you have a choice. Politics is something that rich people tell you so that you don't fucking protest and that we don't get united. So that you could keep on thinking that I'm a libtard and I can keep thinking that you're a Trumpist. And united, we don't stand. Divided, we fall. And all that's left are two political parties that are insanely corrupt and the 1% that own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. The plan's working. Well, good. You identify as a democratic socialist. Good. Well, so here, let's have a conversation then. Blondie OPSV. Welcome to Tommy Nation Politics, by the way. Good to have you on. Are you a guy or a girl? Just so I gotta get my pronouns right. I can't tell. Blondie OPSV. I can't tell, but I'll continue. You're a guy? Okay, cool. What's up, man? How's it going? Welcome to Tommy Nation Politics. Thanks for watching. So you're a democratic socialist. So let's say everybody else that identified as a democratic socialist that was like your friends in your group. What if they didn't want to legalize marijuana anymore? What would you say? Would you still be for that? Oh, sweet. Hey, damn, you're kind of clever. I have to put this up. That's kind of clever, bro. So he's Blondie Ops V. Ah, okay. Wow, that's clever, bro. Blonde like the hair, ops like the black ops, V like the Roman numeral 5. That's tight. I like Roman numerals. I'm the 4th, my name. So answer the question, like, so if everybody around you was like, all of a sudden was like, you know what, the Green New Deal? I mean, Trump was advocating for it. I don't think I want to do. I don't think that's good anymore. What would you say? Would you say I'm still going to advocate for these things, or would you be quiet, or would you not? What would you do? What would you do in that case? If all of a sudden tomorrow, those things on the Democratic Socialist platform, they changed. We would disagree? Yeah. Okay. Well, what if you disagreed and then they told you that you were going to let another Trump happen? If you disagreed with them, or you hate the troops, what would you do then? Because that's what's happening, guys. It's the blame game. It's literally making us more responsible for the world than two political parties that trashed it, polluted it, taxed it, bombed it, and shitted all over it. Extracted the wealth, outsourced the jobs. And it's our fault? We're going to make another Trump if we don't vote for the war criminal, racist, dementia-riddled old man. That's pretty crazy. It's my fault. It's crazy. I mean, so Democratic Socialists. Well, that's cool. AOC was a Democratic Socialist. That's why I ask Blondie Ops V. She was a Democratic Socialist. Everybody was like, oh my God, she's a socialist. She got into Congress, remember? That was crazy. Then guess what? 2 years later, she's voting for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. That's what happens, right? That's what happens. The bandwagon mentality. Going and getting along. That's what happens, guys. Anybody else? Check you out. Where you went? Where you go, bro? You better be here. So, guys, let me get back to my story here. Now, story time. Tommy Nation Politics. So where was I? Oh, yes. Blondie Ops V. Good. Well, hey, what do you think about AOC right now? What do you think about AOC? Think she needs to force the vote? Hashtag force the vote? What do you guys think about force the vote? What do you guys think about that? We need to force something. Force something, guys. So, where was I? Oh, yes. Da-da-da-da. Sorry, guys. I have a little script here. My notes here. My notes. Okay. So, yes. They toppled Iran's democratically elected fucking... they interfered with the elections, and they undermined democracy of Iran. Oh, my God. So, in these declassified new documents, of course, we have the Kennedy, the Bay of Pigs. We have Ajax, along with the 1953 coup. Now, 16 years after the Iraq War started, the White House press spokesman at the time sought to rebut a claim that George W. Bush lied about Iraq's alleged weapons of mass destruction to launch the invasion. Never mind the current Trump guy who said, you know, they lied. They lied. Oh, that was the best part, dude, during the debates. When he went after Jeb, your brother fucking destroyed the country. Yeah, bro. Even I was cheering. So they went after for Saddam Hussein because Operation Desert Storm happened, and we cannot. When we go into the desert or terrain like that, there's no way of winning. It's like Tulsi Gabbard says, you have to have a clear objective and a way to get that objective done. Otherwise, there's no point. And we're wasting lives. We're wasting valuable American lives. Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill believed all that shit. They believed the intelligence agencies. They believed the intelligence agencies of ours and of France, Germany, Great Britain, Russia, China, and Egypt. Bush wrote that in his book, Decision Points. So after 9/11, guys, we had a commission. We had Homeland Security, the apparatus. We had the intelligence apparatus monumentally expand. And this was not a failure to communicate. This was not bad intelligence. This was premeditated and completely uncorroborated conspiracy to go to war for no reason. Do you know what that means? That means 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000 American soldiers died for nothing. So, CIA analysts, now John Brennan's on MSNBC, by the way, right next to to Maddow. Literally, Rachel Maddow is a student of John Brennan's. You know how excited she is when an intelligence report comes out? You know, back in the day, guys, back in the day of Walter Cronkite, what the fuck? What the fuck? Back in the day of Walter Cronkite, guess what? They literally questioned the CIA, the FBI. They were literally of the watchdog. They were called the watchdog. They were called the Fourth Estate. They held people accountable, politicians. They made Nixon resign. Now with 6 conglomerated cable news companies and 3 people owning them, it's hard to get a job now. In fact, literally, the mainstream media, have you noticed that those investigative journalism documentaries, they're nowhere to be found. They stopped investigative journalism. You know why? It tells you stuff, it tells you the truth. Anything that tells you the truth, not good. What doesn't tell you the truth? A lesbian with fake eyelashes getting in a fucking boat pretending that she's back in 1954. Rachel Maddow. You know who doesn't tell you the truth? This fat dude who's like over fucking eating on burgers with his hair slicked back, calls himself Hannity. These guys are disgusting. They're disgusting pigs. They put them in front of us. For some reason, we believe everything they say. They're literal pigs. I'd be wearing a suit and tie, bro. Because you know why? You know why I wear a suit and tie, Blondie Upsby? It's because I know the conventional wisdom and the social norms, bro. And I know that I could tell you all the truth in the world, but if I don't have a suit and a tie on, well, I'm not serious. I'm not a serious person, right? Right? See, I know about this conventional. I hate them all. Every single conventional wisdom, social norms. But I learned, which is why I graduated from college, finally. I finally learned, guys, that even though I hate with a passion all of these stupid etiquette, bullshit, no reason rules and social norms and conventional wisdom, if I don't fucking do this shit, you're not going to notice me. So I'm going to wear a tie until I get 5 million fucking subscribers. Then I'll take this shit off. Wear a jacket like Zhank. I'll fucking let my belly grow. But I won't lie. Because literally, I'll be bothered if I lie. So I can't lie, guys. Because I bother myself. Then I'll be like, oh my God, someone's going to check my story. I can't live like that. Causes me to smoke weed. But yeah. Thanks, Blondie Upsby. He says, just be comfy. I'm glad you think that I could just be comfy. I can't, bro. A lot of these people, they won't listen to me. They won't think I'm a serious person unless I wear a tie. So I have to wear a tie for them. I'm doing it for them. But it's okay. But because you know what? I'll do a lot of stuff for you guys. I literally forsook all my like I used to care about other like issues, guys, like gay marriage back in the day or Medicare for all, Green New Deal. The only issue I'm really concerned about at this moment are the Republicans and the Democrats. It's gotten so bad, guys. So bad. They've gone from lying us into war to literally robbing the treasury. And now, I don't even know what they're going to do. We're like almost like 3/4 in the way of this pandemic, and they're already wanting to ramp up the war machine with Russia. They can't stop bombing Syria. They can't. I don't know whether they want to just get Putin out and try to like regime change Russia, or they literally every time we try to we try to occupy Syria, Putin's always there because he's their ally. So like fuck. So, can you explain to me why the U.S. is the only developed country that doesn't have universal health care or affordable education? Well, yes, I can. This is just my theory. I don't have like any I don't have any sources or corroborations, but from my experience, guys, education is something that makes people, their instincts. You start to realize what propaganda is. You start to realize what lies and manufacturing consent is because you listen to Noam Chomsky and all those academia's people. They're like, and then when Rachel Maddow is telling you about Russia on TV, you start to spot it. So then that's why they enforced Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae to give you outrageous loans with outrageous interest. So they can make sure that even if you know the truth, you're going to be working so hard, 24 hours a day, day after day, that you won't even care. You won't notice. You definitely won't protest. You definitely won't stop voting Republican and Democrat. You're too busy. Let us take care of it. We don't have universal health care because they want us to die really quickly. The whole reason. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, guys. Just think about this. They want us to die early because after we're done working, we're useless. We're useless. They need our kids to work. That's why they give us child tax credits. You think it's cool because you have kids. What they're saying right now, what they're saying though is sooner or later, you're going to drop. So we're going to work you to death. Our corporations will. If I switch your jobs, we pay you less than minimum wage because we take it from taxes. So what we're going to do is We're going to go and give you a child tax credit so you can have some kids. We need them to work. We need their bones. We need their blood. Sooner or later, you're going to run out. We're nothing but a useless meat bag. We're nothing but, have you seen that movie Matrix? I mean, it's literally true. We're batteries. And they're putting us in. And they're taking us out. So that's why we don't have universal health care. We probably never will. Bernie Sanders, he wants it. He'll never have it. He won't. Because every time he gets close, oh, Joe Biden's a friend of mine. Joe, are you sure you didn't cut Social Security, Joe? Are you sure you didn't want to try it a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, Joe? Joe, I'm just asking you. You weren't on the floor of the Senate saying we need more prisons, Joe. That wasn't you. Okay, you're a friend of mine. So, yeah, I broke my heart 2016 when Hillary, gave him that letter. Thank you for campaigning for me 39 times. You almost got sick. I had to get a fucking thing in your heart because you campaigned for her so hard. Then guess what? She was on Howard Stern being like, nobody likes Bernie Sanders. That's how these people are. He doesn't know. He's old. Old people don't realize it, bro. But I do. I'm not used to it. I'm not used to it. Yet. I hope I don't get as bad as Bernie. Where I get fucked over so many times, I'm just used to it. Okay, it's time to endorse Hillary now. Okay, it's time to endorse Joe now. I hope that doesn't happen to me. I hope I don't get that fucking tired and old that I just stop and dream about universal health care and dream about legalizing marijuana. There's only one way we can get those shit. Get that shit, guys. It's not gonna be Bernie Sanders. It's gonna be us. We're gonna have to put pressure on these progressives or whoever you look up to or voted for in the Congress, in the government. It's time to tell them. Just like I told Bernie. You better do it. If you don't do it, you will no longer have my support. That's the kind of politics us American people need to play, guys. We need to start playing some politics of our own. Otherwise, we're just going to get... That's the one thing about Trump. The reason why he lost. I mean, yeah, he was a dumbass, blah, 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 blah. He had some good instincts. Get out of Syria. Get out of Iraq. He wanted to. The CIA. The Kurds! Oh my God! Russia! But he had some good instincts. The thing that really fucking sank his boat was he talked too much. And he didn't do anything. Nothing. He did nothing. He told these guys about the military-industrial complex. That was scary. Nobody talks about the military-industrial complex. You all remember that? Then they bugged his phones. That's why they bugged his phones. And that's why they got the Raffensperger call, the Georgia State Secretary. Because after he told everybody about the military-industrial complex, they were like, and he was like, are you sure I can't get 11,870 votes? Because he's a dumbass. Yeah, you didn't think they were going to be bugging your phones after that? After you talked about them? These guys, they retaliate. Trump does not retaliate. He called everybody a loser, a baby. He called everybody fake news. But at the end of the day, did he do anything about the fake news? No. Did he destroy any of his enemies? No. So now all of his enemies are literally suing him in New York, getting his tax returns, getting his money, making him pay millions and millions of dollars in fucking civil lawsuits because he didn't destroy them. So remember that, guys. Cersei Lannister, the Game of Thrones. You either win or you die. There is no in between. You can't just call people fake news and shit and then not do anything. You have to fucking... What's his name? Sir Gregor? You have to Sir Gregor them. Okay? If you want to call people fake news, you best have a Sir Gregor. Power is power. Power is power, guys. Well, because, guys, the reason I'm wearing sunglasses inside, that's a really good question. It's going to reveal something, guys. I'm about to reveal something because I'm a blind and deaf and dumb mute. I'm just kidding. No, it's because I'm looking at a teleprompter sometimes, and I don't want you to notice, okay? But don't tell anyone else who's not on this live stream. Because if you do, you hate the troops. And you just killed 500 fetuses. So, Rachel Maddow told me. Intelligence briefing came out. Turns out, you guys are the ones who are responsible for Trump. So anyway, I hope we've had a good productive conversation. I made a new friend. Hey, blonde PSV, Blondio, PPSV, Blondie. Let's call you Blondie. Subscribe, follow, bro. I do a Tommy Nation Tuesday every Tuesday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'll be there. And I don't care if you're conservative, democratic socialist, progressive, liberal, right, left. As long as you're a free-thinking, innovative, open-minded person who knows the problem, the real problem. It's not the welfare queens. Well, some of the welfare. It's other welfare queens. We're not the welfare queens. It's not the blacks. It's not the gays. It's not the Jews. It's not the Mexicans. They didn't take your jobs. There's only one person who took your jobs. There's only one person who the problem is. It's the Republicans and the Democrats. They have a monopoly. They have a monopoly on our success, our wealth, our country, and our surveillance and our secret, our privacy. They have a monopoly. There's something we got to do about it, guys. We have to take back our life, our liberty, and our pursuit of happiness. I want you to do it with me, and I don't care what ideology you are. We can fight about ideology later. We need to unite. We have a problem. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, Tommy Nation Politics. Y'all, skedaddle.